People who hate on the old food pyramid clearly have never actually read it. All right, guys, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today, but a quick reminder, if you guys will please click like down below. I would appreciate it. If you aren't subscribed or following, please do so. And please drop me a comment with your thoughts or just to say hello down under the video. I would appreciate that also. Thank you so much. All right, let's come over and let's talk about the issues with this. It's really strange. You see people who make points about what they think is in the food pyramid, and they'll say really stupid stuff like, well, it's supposed to be flipped upside down. What? So you want everyone to live on seed oils and table sugar and high fructose corn syrup? Like if you, and people say, what? Yeah, if you flip the food pyramid upside down, those become the foundation of your diet. So you're basically just going to drink canola oil and eat spoonfuls of sugar would be what would happen if you flipped the pyramid upside down. Yeah, just for those who are not aware. And butter. Yeah, butter would be in there too. Those three foods would be the foundation of your entire diet if you flip it upside down, which is pretty much what a standard American diet looks like anyways. All right, let's get over to the point though. That's because people haven't actually read it. They say these crazy statements. And I get it. You know, people will say nonsense like, well, those were government guidelines that came out and, people got fatter and fatter. Yeah, because, Americans follow government guidelines, right? Because that's literally what Americans do. They go say, hey, what does the government recommend that I do? And I'm going to build my whole lifestyle around it. Yeah, because that's totally what happened, right? Here's the problem. Had Americans actually followed the food pyramid, nobody would have gotten fat. Right? No one would have gotten fat. The objection that people have with it is that it's a high carbohydrate diet. But might I point out that the leanest cultures on earth tend to be high carbohydrate? I'm just throwing that out there. Go find any country on earth that has low rates of obesity. This is not a third world nation. Like let's step away and say obviously starvation's a problem. Non-third world nations. And find any of the countries that have really low levels of obesity, low levels of diabetes, low levels of heart disease. Almost every one of them eat over 50% of their calories from carbohydrates. So that's what are you talking about? Right? Not the problem. And the thing is, it's all mostly minimally refined carbohydrates. It's not like refined carbohydrates are really making up the bulk of it, other than if we're going to talk about, I guess, bread, which, I'll agree. All right, bread definitely can become problematic, but it's also the only way bread falls into the food pyramid is if there's no butter, oils, or sugar in it. What? Well, as soon as you start adding that stuff, you can't eat it all the time. All right? That's where they're messing up. When you look at it, it's kind of like that bottom tier is your breads and cereals and starches. But it's like they're talking about not junk food type bread, older school bread. Not necessarily what people are eating today that's full of all this junk. Rice, potatoes, oatmeal, right? These foods that don't actually seem to make anybody fat in the research or the demographics around the world. Right? And then it's like fruits and vegetables up next. And then it's all your different lean proteins, meat, dairy. Okay? That's your next tier up. And I would agree for if you're trying to be a bodybuilder, maybe that protein tier should definitely have a little higher priority. I would agree. But I can tell you right now, the average person doesn't need to eat 200 grams of protein. So do we really need to have that? Like if you're not lifting weights, are we trying to protein load here for the average person? I don't think so. So then what's the tip of the pyramid? All the refined sugars, sweets, added fats, oils. So that means all your candy, like we think of as breakfast cereals today, they have a bunch of sugar, they're in the tip. Butter, oil, anything cooked in vegetable oils, anything cooked in butter, like all that stuff. That's the tip of the pyramid, right? And I don't care where you stand in the spectrum, even if you set aside the crazy goofball pro-butter cult, every other sane person knows butter is probably not something you need to eat much of. It's common sense. Without even going into the research showing that, but then everything else. You know, the same people who fall into that other category of we just want to follow our all ketogenic diet, they all hate seed oils and refined sugar too. That is the tip of the pyramid. And that tip means no more than about 3% of your diet can come from those things. 0 to 3%. 0 means also if you avoid them completely, it fits in the food pyramid. That's all your refined sugars. That's your table sugar, your high fructose corn syrup, all your vegetable oils, your seed oils, your butter, even your heavy cream, all that stuff. Anything that's an added fat or an added sugar that you are adding to foods falls in that category. That includes if they're baked in already. It doesn't mean you personally add them. If you go to the store and there's a bunch of table sugar added to the cereal, it falls into that tip. If you're buying bread that's been loaded full of high fructose corn syrup, butter, and shortening, it falls into that tip. That area that you're only supposed to moderate. Those are treats eaten on occasion in extreme moderation. All right, that was what the basis of the diet was, but it had you focusing on, basically let's focus on like rice, potatoes, starches, then fruits, vegetables, and proteins. Okay? And that works. That works everywhere around the world, and we're not saying it's perfect. They've changed it over to my plate. They got rid of the food pyramid. But, people will jump up and make a big deal and act like it was the worst thing in the world. And it's like, but all the foods that you're screaming about, the ones that everyone screams about are all in the tip. They're already in the area of saying, hey, these are not things that you should be eating very much of. They should make up no more than about 3% of your diet, but as little as 0% of your diet also. They're forgetting that. They're so freaked out about the fact that it wants you to eat rice, which perfectly reasonable for all the leanest, healthiest cultures on earth. Doesn't seem to be a problem to live on rice or potatoes. Not correlated at all with problems. Right? They're so fixated on that they forget that the worst offenders that they all hate are the tip of the pyramid. And I want anyone to explain to me any scenario, any diet scenario that you come from to where the idea that you should moderate added fats, and refined sugars and added sugars, that these things should be kept to the bare minimum or completely eliminated. Show me where the problem is with this. Right? It's not there. There's no problem with this. All right, guys. That's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.